Listen, I have been a compliance officer for the Galactic Concordance for 73 cycles now. 73. In that time, I have processed exactly 4,216 species into our glorious collective. You know how many gave us trouble? 3. Just 3 out of 4,000 plus civilizations actually put up any kind of real fight before seeing reason. Then we found Earth. My designation is Chlorth, which I know sounds like someone choking on their breakfast, but that is what my gene donors decided to call me. I work, or worked, I should say, aboard the enforcement vessel Harmonious Resolution. The name alone should tell you everything about how we operate. We show up, we explain the benefits of joining the Concordance, we demonstrate our superior firepower, and species sign on the dotted line. Simple. Elegant. Boring as frozen methane, honestly. But humans? Oh, humans had other ideas. The initial contact went fine. We transmitted our standard greeting in 847 languages simultaneously. Very impressive. The humans responded within minutes, which showed promising intelligence. Their representative, a female named Victoria Okafor, appeared on our view screen wearing what we later learned was called a business suit. Professional. Composed. Reasonable. Welcome to Earth, she said with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. We have been expecting visitors for quite some time. My supervisor, a Vrelnath named Kalmar who had tentacles where most species have dignity, waved one appendage dismissively. Excellent. Then you understand the efficiency of immediate compliance. Your planet will be integrated within 3 standard rotations. Please prepare your surrender documents. Victoria's smile grew wider. Still did not reach her eyes though. I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding, she said, her voice sweet as Andromedan honey wine. We were expecting visitors. We were not expecting conquerors. There is a rather significant difference. Kalmar's skin flushed orange, which meant confusion in Vrelnath physiology. Your military capacity is 0.003% of ours. Your technology level registers as primitive category 7. You have precisely 42 nuclear weapons capable of leaving your atmosphere. We have 6,000 ships in orbit right now. Where exactly is the room for misunderstanding? In the part where you think any of that matters, Victoria replied. Then she disconnected the transmission. I remember laughing. Actually laughing. The audacity was almost charming in its stupidity. Kalmar ordered the standard intimidation protocol, a series of low-intensity weapon strikes on uninhabited areas. We vaporized a small mountain range in what the humans called Antarctica, turned about 8,000 tons of ice into steam, and waited for the panicked calls of surrender. Instead, we got a transmission from a different human. Male this time, wearing a military uniform covered in colorful decorations. His name tag read General Marcus Webb. That, he said, pointing at something off-screen, was my favorite mountain range. My wife and I honeymooned near there 40 years ago. You just made this personal. Then he also disconnected. Curious, Kalmar muttered, his tentacles twitching with what I recognized as the beginning of concern. Initiate Phase 2. Phase 2 involved more substantial demonstrations. We knocked out their power grids in 3 major population centers for exactly 1 hour. We wanted them scared, not desperate. Desperate species do unpredictable things. We had learned that the hard way with the Krillnoth, who decided that if they were going down, they were taking their entire solar system with them. Messy business. Mountains of paperwork. The power came back on after our allotted hour. And then something strange happened. Every single communication device on Earth started broadcasting the same message. Not from their government. Not from their military. From their civilians. Billions of individual messages, all saying variations of the same thing. Come down here and say that to our faces. You think we are scared? My commute is scarier than you. I have dealt with customer service. You are nothing. My mother-in-law is more intimidating than your death ships. On and on and on. Millions of them. Some angry, some mocking, some genuinely hilarious. One human, a teenager from a place called Mumbai, sent us a video of herself eating something called spicy curry while maintaining eye contact with the camera. The text overlay read, "If I can handle this, I can handle you." This is not standard reaction, I told Calmer, reviewing the data streams. Typically by this point, we have received 400 formal surrender requests and at least 60 offers of complete subjugation. Perhaps they do not understand the situation, Calmer suggested, though his tentacles were now knotted together. Definitely concerned. Initiate Phase 3. Phase 3 was the big one. We sent down strike teams to their major cities. Not to kill anyone, just to establish presence and remind them who held the power here. 20 teams. 400 soldiers. Full combat gear. Energy weapons. Personal shields. The works. 19 teams reported successful deployment. The 20th team, the one sent to a city called New Orleans, encountered a problem. "Sir," the team leader, a Vorlaxian named Gretsch, reported over comms. His voice had a quality I had never heard before. "We have a situation." "Define situation," Calmer demanded. "There is a human here. Just one. He is sitting in a chair outside an establishment that serves food. He has a beverage. He is smiling at us. And sir, he is not moving." Silence on the bridge. We pulled up the visual feed from Gretsch's helmet camera. Sure enough, there sat a human male, probably in his 60s by Earth standards, sitting in a rickety chair outside a building with a faded sign reading Manny's Kitchen. He wore shorts, sandals, and a shirt with a cartoon alligator on it. In one hand he held a glass containing something amber-colored. In the other, a cigarette smoldered. "That is your situation?" Calmer asked, his tentacles unknotting slightly. "One elderly human with a drinking problem. He will not move, sir. We have ordered him to disperse 6 times. He just keeps smiling. Then move him yourselves." We watched as 2 Vorlaxian soldiers approached the human. The man, whose name we later learned was Eugene Duchamp, took a long drag from his cigarette and spoke. The audio picked up his gravelly voice clearly. "You boys lost. You will vacate this area immediately," Gretsch ordered. "Or what? Or we will remove you by force." Eugene took a sip of his drink, ice cubes clinking against glass. "Been through Hurricane Katrina. Been through 3 tours in Vietnam. Been through 2 divorces and a triple bypass. Tell you what, friend. If you are going to move me, you better bring more than fancy armor and an attitude." One of the soldiers reached out to grab Eugene's shoulder. The old man did not move, did not flinch, did not even blink. He just kept smiling that small, dangerous smile and maintained eye contact. The soldier's hand stopped mid-reach. "Gretsch," Calmer hissed. "Complete the operation." But Gretsch and his team just stood there. 20 heavily armed alien soldiers, frozen by one old human in shorts and a novelty shirt. It was not Eugene's physical presence that stopped them. It was something else. Something we had not encountered before in all our conquests. It was the absolute, unshakable certainty in that man's eyes that he would not move, could not be moved, and that trying to make him move would cost more than anyone was willing to pay. After 97 seconds of standoff, Gretsch withdrew his team. "Explain," Calmer demanded when the team returned to the ship. Gretsch, a decorated combat veteran who had participated in 42 planetary pacifications, struggled to find words. "Sir, I cannot explain it precisely. But that human would have died before moving. And somehow, we all knew that his death would not end the situation. It would start something worse." "Ridiculous," Calmer spat. "One human. One old, fragile, technologically primitive human." "Yes sir," Gretsch agreed. But he did not act like he was fragile. And I believe that might be more important than the reality. This is when things started falling apart for us. See, humans have this thing called the internet. Within 3 hours of Eugene's standoff, the video had been viewed 800 million times. Eugene became what they call viral. Humans started showing up in their cities wherever our teams had deployed. Not with weapons. Not with violence. They just showed up. And sat. And refused to move. We tried threatening them. They quoted poetry at us. We tried reason. They laughed. We tried explaining the benefits of Concordance membership. They asked if it came with dental coverage and seemed disappointed by our confusion. In Tokyo, a woman named Yuki Tanaka brought tea for our soldiers and invited them to sit with her. They were so bewildered they actually sat down. She proceeded to tell them about her grandmother who survived 2 atomic bombs and lived to be 97. "You think you scare me?" she asked, pouring tea with steady hands. "I come from the only species that dropped nuclear weapons on itself and decided to keep going anyway." In Berlin, a man stood in front of our hover tank for 6 hours. When asked why, he simply said, "This spot is important to me." My grandfather stood in a similar spot once. Against different invaders. Same principle. In Lagos, in Sydney, in Mexico City, in Toronto, the story repeated itself. Humans just refusing to cooperate with the basic logic of conquest. They were not warriors. They were teachers and shopkeepers and artists and engineers. But they all shared one characteristic. They were stubborn beyond all reasonable measurement. "This is unprecedented," I reported to Calmer after compiling 3 days of data. "We have compliance rates of -7%. Negative. That should not even be possible. It means more humans are resisting now than when we started." Calmer's skin had turned a sickly gray color. "Recommend immediate escalation to Phase 7. Phase 7 meant kinetic bombardment. Real damage. Real casualties." I hesitated, appendage hovering over the authorization pad. "Sir, perhaps we should reconsider. The concordance principles state that we only use lethal force when absolutely necessary. Look at your screens, Clorth. This is absolutely necessary. These humans are making a mockery of 70,000 years of concordance protocol." He was right, of course. By every logical measure, we should have owned Earth 3 days ago. Instead, we had ships full of confused soldiers, a viral video of an old man in shorts drinking what we learned was called whiskey, and a growing sense that we had fundamentally misunderstood something crucial about humanity. But orders were orders. We selected a small coastal town as our target. Population 8,000. Strategic value 0. It would serve as an example. Show the humans we were serious. Force them to face reality. The bombardment authorization came through. I input the coordinates. The weapons systems charged. And then a message appeared on my console from an unexpected source. Eugene Duchamp. Somehow that old man had gotten access to our communication frequencies. Impossible, considering our encryption, but there it was. "You really going to do it?" his message read. "You really going to prove you are the bad guys here?" I stared at those words for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 seconds. Then I pressed the authorization button. The kinetic strike launched at exactly 1400 hours, ship time. A tungsten rod, 2 meters long, accelerated to terminal velocity. Enough force to level a city block. We aimed for the town square, maximum visibility, minimum actual casualties if people took shelter. A demonstration, not a massacre. At least, that is what we told ourselves. The rod descended through Earth's atmosphere, plasma trail blazing behind it like a finger of judgment. It never hit the ground. Something intercepted it. Something fast, something we had not detected, something that should not have existed according to our intelligence reports. The explosion occurred 800 meters above the target zone. Spectacular. Harmless. And completely humiliating. What just happened? Calmer shrieked, his tentacles flailing in 7 different directions. Someone tell me what just happened. I pulled up the sensor logs, rewound, enhanced, analyzed. Then I saw it. A missile, crude by our standards, launched from a mobile platform 60 kilometers away. Not advanced. Not alien technology. Just human engineering, human timing, and apparently, human audacity turned into a functional weapons system. They shot down our kinetic strike, I reported, my voice flat with disbelief. With what appears to be a modified anti-ballistic missile system approximately 40 years old by their technological standards. That is impossible. The timing required, the calculations, the sheer precision. Yes, sir. Impossible. And yet, recorded on 7 different sensor arrays. A new transmission came through. Not from Victoria Okafor this time. Not from General Webb. This one came from Eugene Duchamp, still sitting in his chair outside that restaurant in New Orleans. He had not moved in 3 days, according to our surveillance. People brought him food. Someone had set up a canopy to keep the sun off him. Children came by to take pictures with him. And through it all, he just sat there, smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey, a human monument to sheer stubborn defiance. Nice shot, boys, Eugene's voice crackled through our speakers. Now let me tell you a little story about humanity. See, we have this thing in our history. A place called Thermopylae. Another called Alamo. Ever heard of Stalingrad? Leningrad? How about this little thing we called World War II, where we literally fought ourselves nearly to extinction and then decided, we should probably not do that again. We are real good at learning from our mistakes. Eventually. Calmer muted the transmission, but I could still see Eugene talking on the video feed, that infuriating smile never wavering. Enough, Calmer decided. We are leaving. Sir. You heard me. Retreat to high orbit. Prepare for departure. We will report this planet as unsuitable for integration. Hostile native population. Too primitive to bother with. Let them stew in their own backward civilization for another 1,000 years. Sir, the Concordance Council will demand an explanation. We have never abandoned the integration operation after deployment. Then we will give them an explanation. Calmer's skin flushed through 6 colors in rapid succession. We will tell them the truth. These humans are insane. They are statistically, demonstrably, categorically insane. They blow up their own planet for energy, they eat food that actively burns their digestive systems for entertainment, they invented nuclear weapons and use them on themselves, and when faced with overwhelming force, they sit in chairs and refuse to move. What kind of species does that? Before I could answer, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple alarms. Every sensor screaming simultaneously. Report. Calmer demanded. Sir, my colleague Threx announced, mandibles clicking nervously, we have launches. Multiple launches. From every major landmass. Tracking shows. Sir, they are launching everything. Every missile in their arsenal. Nuclear, conventional, experimental. They are throwing their entire planetary defense grid at us. Shields up. Evasive maneuvers. How many incoming? 473 missiles, sir. Estimated time to impact, 6 minutes. I watched the plot. Hundreds of trails arcing up from Earth's surface, a swarm of primitive but determined weaponry. Our shields could handle it. Probably. But that was not the point anymore. The point was that they launched. Against overwhelming odds, against impossible mathematics, against 6,000 ships carrying enough firepower to crack a planet, humanity looked at the situation and decided that surrender was simply not an option. Incoming transmission, I reported. From General Webb. Calmer gestured sharply. The general's face appeared on screen, and I noticed something different about his expression. He was not angry anymore. He was calm. Eerily calm. The kind of calm that comes from making a decision and accepting all consequences. You targeted civilians, Webb said quietly. That changed the equation. See, we could have talked. We could have negotiated. Hell, we might have even joined your little galactic club eventually. But you went after innocent people trying to prove a point. So now we prove ours. Your missiles cannot harm us. Calmer shouted. Maybe not. Maybe you shoot down every single one. But you know what you cannot shoot down? The idea. You came here thinking we would roll over because your ships are bigger. You thought technology and firepower meant inevitable victory. But you forgot to check if we cared about inevitable. Spoiler alert, General, we really don't. The first wave of missiles reached intercept range. Our point defense systems engaged, brilliant flashes of light as projectiles vaporized. Efficient. Effective. Exactly as designed. But more kept coming. And more. And more. They are not trying to hit us, Threx observed, studying the trajectory patterns. They are boxing us in. Creating a debris field. Making it harder to maneuver. Clever. Wasteful, but clever. Humanity was sacrificing its entire defensive arsenal not to win, but to prove that winning was not the only thing that mattered. Sir, I said quietly. I am receiving reports from the surface teams. They are requesting immediate extraction. The humans have stopped being passive. They are not attacking, but they are surrounding our positions. Thousands of them. They are just standing there, watching. Waiting. Waiting for what? For us to flinch, sir. They are waiting to see if we are actually willing to massacre them wholesale. Because if we are, they want us to own that decision completely. A new transmission came through. This time from Victoria Okafor. She stood in what appeared to be a government building, surrounded by representatives from every nation on Earth. Behind her, a screen showed Eugene Duchamp, still in his chair, still smoking, still smiling. Concordance, she said, and I noticed her use of our formal title now, not some dismissive nickname. You asked earlier where the room for misunderstanding was. Let me clarify. You saw a primitive species with inferior technology and assumed that meant inferior will. You counted our weapons and thought you knew our strength. But human strength is not in our missiles or our ships or our bombs. Our strength is in stories like Eugene here. The camera zoomed in on the old man. Someone had brought him a fresh drink. Eugene is 73 years old, Victoria continued. He has survived wars, natural disasters, personal tragedies, and according to his medical records, about 67 things that should have killed him. He has absolutely nothing to gain from sitting in that chair. No money, no power, no strategic advantage. He sits there because he decided this is where he sits. And that decision, that utterly unreasonable, completely illogical decision, is the most human thing imaginable. She paused, letting that sink in. You want Earth? You can have the dirt. Take it. Haul it away in cargo containers for all we care. But you cannot have humanity. You cannot make us surrender. You cannot make us comply. You cannot make us reasonable. Because at our core, we are not a reasonable species. We are the species that looked at the stars and decided we belonged there before we even had the technology to reach them. We are the species that invented flight because we were jealous of birds. We invented submarines because we were jealous of fish. We split the atom because we could. We went to our moon not because it was easy, but because someone said it was hard. Another wave of missiles detonated against our shields. Energy readings fluctuated. Not dangerous yet, but trending that direction. Here is what happens next, Victoria said. You can leave. Nobody will chase you. Nobody will celebrate. We will simply go back to our lives and remember you as the aliens who showed up, tried to push us around, and left. Or you can stay and try to force the issue. And maybe you win. Maybe your technology really is that much better. Maybe you glass the entire planet and put up a monument to your victory. But you know what? Humanity will still win. Explain that logic, Calmer demanded. Victoria smiled. Same smile as before. Still not reaching her eyes. Because the story will spread. 6,000 ships could not make one old man move from his chair. The Great Concordance retreated from a species that still uses combustion engines. How many other species out there are watching right now? How many are seeing that the Emperor has no clothes? We will lose, but you will spend the next 1,000 years dealing with every other species wondering if maybe, just maybe, they do not have to surrender either. Silence on the bridge. Even the alarm seemed quieter somehow. Calmer looked at me. I looked at Threx. Threx looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of human ships, cobbled together from civilian spacecraft, mining vessels, and what appeared to be a casino, forming up between Earth and our fleet. None of them were military vessels. None of them stood a chance in combat. But there they were anyway, crewed by volunteers, flying toward 6,000 warships because someone had to and they figured it might as well be them. Prepare for withdrawal, Calmer said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. All ships. Full retreat. Mark this system as quarantined until further notice. Sir, I said carefully, the report. I will tell them the truth. Hostile species. Unreasonable. Unpredictable. Unsuitable for integration due to fundamental incompatibility with logical governance structures. And I will recommend that we never, ever come back. As our ships began their departure sequence, I pulled up one final view of Earth. Eugene Duchamp was standing now, apparently deciding that he had made his point. He raised his glass toward the sky, toward us, and took a long drink. Then he flicked his cigarette into the street, turned around, and walked back into his restaurant. The last words we intercepted from Earth as we jumped to hyperspace came from General Webb. Just 3 words, but they encapsulated everything we had learned about humanity in the worst week of my professional career. See you around. Not a threat. Not a promise. Just a statement of fact. Because humanity, we had learned, does not make threats. They make demonstrations. And we had just witnessed the greatest demonstration of all. That one species, primitive and outgunned, could look at overwhelming force and decide that surrender was simply not on the menu today. I filed my report using exactly those words. The Concordance Council read it. They discussed it. They argued about it. And then they did something they had not done in 70,000 years. They agreed with our assessment. Earth remains quarantined to this day. Not because humanity is dangerous. But because they are contagious. Because the idea that you can simply refuse, that you can sit in a chair and not move, that you can look at impossible odds and say no thank you, that idea spreads faster than any weapon or technology. Eugene Duchamp died 5 years after the incident. Heart attack. Peaceful. In his sleep. His funeral was attended by thousands. They put a statue of him outside that restaurant, sitting in his chair, holding his drink, wearing that smile. The plaque reads, "He sat." They left. End of story. But it is not the end of the story, is it? Because somewhere out there, some other species is going to get visited by the Concordance. They are going to be told to surrender. And someone is going to remember the story of the old man who sat in a chair and refused to move. Someone is going to think, if humans can do it, why cannot we? That is why humanity won. Not because they beat us. But because they became proof that beating us was possible. They became the story that every oppressed species will tell their children. They became the example. The template. The demonstration that sometimes, just sometimes, the right answer to overwhelming force is a simple, quiet, absolutely unreasonable no. So if you are wondering what happened to the Galactic Concordance after the Earth incident, well, let me just say that enforcement operations have become significantly more complicated. And expensive. And uncertain. And that is entirely humanity's fault. I have been reassigned to waste management. I consider it a promotion. At least garbage is predictable. Unlike humans. Unlike Eugene Duchamp and his chair and his whiskey and his absolute refusal to be reasonable. He became the proof that humans do not surrender quietly. Hell, they do not surrender at all. They just sit there, smiling, and wait for you to realize that you already lost. And that, my friend, is the most terrifying thing in the entire galaxy.